Have you ever noticed how, after you meet someone for the first time, it is incredibly hard to change your mind about them? Well, it's not just you, it is a really powerful and often totally invisible mental habit that we all share. So today, we're going to dig in and find out exactly why our brains get so stuck on those first impressions.
Is such a simple phrase, but it is so true. We like to think we're these super rational beings, right? That we're always updating our beliefs with new information. But the reality is, that gut feeling we get in the first few seconds, it just sticks. It really sets the stage for everything that follows. So what is going on here? What's the science behind this? In this first part, we're going to break down exactly why our first take on something is so darn hard to shake. And it turns out it all comes down to this really powerful shortcut that our brain just loves to use. And that shortcut is called a mental anchor. Okay, think of it like this. The second your brain gets that first little piece of information, it drops an anchor. And from that point on, every other piece of info you get is judged based on how close it is to that original spot. Now, why would our brains do this? It's simple, really. It's all about efficiency. It's a way to save precious mental energy, even if that first anchor isn't 100% accurate.
So where can we actually see this anchoring effect playing out in the real world? Well, a classic example is in how we size people up. Our judgment can get totally hijacked by something that just looks like competence, but, as we'll see, often isn't.
I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? You're listening to someone, and they're speaking with so much conviction, so much polish, that you just find yourself nodding along, totally sold on whatever they're saying. They just sound so sure of themselves. You think, wow, they must really know their stuff. But is that always true?
Okay, this is what I find so fascinating. This slide breaks down that mental shortcut perfectly. Confidence, on one side, is just a feeling. It's easy to put on, and it's super easy for our brains to spot. Intelligence, on the other hand, that's the ability to actually apply knowledge, and it is way harder to measure. It takes real mental work. So when your brain is faced with that choice, what's it going to do? It's going to take the path of least resistance. It just defaults to trusting the confidence.
And that is the absolute key. The mental anchor our brain drops isn't based on the facts someone is presenting. No, it's anchored to the feeling of certainty that we get from the speaker. And that's what we call the certainty illusion. Our first impression of them as confident anchors our entire perception, and we start filtering everything they say through that shiny positive lens.
All right, so that's how this whole anchoring thing messes with our judgment of other people. But what happens when we turn that lens around and look at ourselves? Well, it turns out this very same principle explains the behavior that I think we can all relate to, procrastination.
Now, this might sound completely backwards at first, but it's such a critical shift in how we think about this. For years, we've beaten ourselves up for being lazy when we put things off. But what we're learning is that procrastination isn't some deep character flaw. It's actually a predictable emotional reaction that's happening inside your brain. And here's that loop in action. It all starts when you look at a task on your to-do list, and your brain's first impression is just, this feels bad. That feeling of discomfort, maybe it's boredom, maybe it's stress, it triggers this urgent need for relief. So what do? You avoid the task, and that gives you an instant hit of relief. And then boom, your brain learns a really simple but powerful lesson. Avoiding this thing makes me feel better. The behavior gets reinforced, and you're even more likely to do it next time.
And there it is. That's the connection. That initial feeling, that very first impression of a task as unpleasant, becomes the mental anchor. From that point on, all your decisions are based on getting away from that anchored feeling of discomfort. It's actually a completely logical response from a brain that's wired to avoid pain, even if it's not great for us in the long run.
So here we have these two things that seem totally different, right? Trusting a confident speaker and putting off your own work. But they're really just two sides of the exact same coin. Both are driven by this single fundamental principle in our brains.
This table just puts it all together beautifully. Both of these behaviors are about taking the path of least resistance. When we trust certainty, our brain is dodging the cognitive effort of doing a deep analysis. When we procrastinate, our brain is dodging the emotional effort of a difficult task. See the pattern? They're both short-term fixes that, unfortunately, come with a pretty big long-term price tag. So, what on earth can we do about this? I mean, it can feel like you're constantly fighting your own brain. But here's the good news. The key isn't to fight it. It's to understand it. Just being aware that these shortcuts are happening is the single most powerful first step you can take to start taking back control.
So here are a few ways you can start to lift that anchor. First, just pause. When you get that really strong first impression about something or someone, just stop and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Try to consciously separate how confident someone sounds from what they're actually saying. And when you feel that pull to procrastinate, recognize it for what it is, a signal. It's not you being lazy, it's just your brain saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable. Acknowledge the shortcut, thank your brain for trying to help, and then gently choose the more deliberate path.
So I'll leave you with something to chew on. What's a first impression, maybe of a person, a job, or even a task that you anchored to a long time ago? And is that anchor still keeping you in the same spot? Or is it maybe time to finally pull it up?
I really hope this gives you a new lens to look through when you think about your own mind. We've got plenty more aha moments like this coming your way.